Hey, Robert.
Hey, Mandisa.
I'm really excited that we're here in this conversation.
Me too. People living with HIV experience stigma throughout every part of their lives. Legal frameworks such as HIV criminalization provide powerful proof of institutionalized stigma. I hope you're watching because you care about HIV criminalization and want to learn more.
So, what is HIV criminalization?
HIV criminalization is the inappropriate use of the criminal law to regulate and punish people living with HIV.
Here in the US, around half the states have HIV specific criminal laws, including our great state of Louisiana. Our HIV criminal statute is revised statute 1443.5, and it's called the intentional exposure to HIV. Proof of intent to transmit, nor is actual transmission a requirement in order to be convicted under these laws. In our state law, it has this clause called means in contact, which is very, very vague. If we want people to share their status, we have to make it legally safe in order for them to do so. People shouldn't live in fear that a disclosure is later used against them. Lastly, there's actually a heightened penalty if someone is accused of exposing a first responder to HIV. That's something that is important to mention because first responder is defined very broadly. These laws don't take into account the roots, risks, and realities of transmission. So for example, U equals U has been around for quite some time now. U equals U stands for undetectable equals untransmittable. And unfortunately, in a law that's focused on exposure, none of that matters. PrEP isn't even considered, again, the type of activity. Again, because it focuses on means or contact, it's cases right here in Louisiana of saliva being used as a deadly weapon, even though saliva is not, nor has ever been, a means of transmitting HIV.
And I'm glad that you brought up U equals U because we have PrEP, so people who are HIV negative can remain negative by utilizing PrEP.
In Louisiana, what are some of the consequences of being convicted under intentional exposure to HIV?
Well, it is a felony conviction. There's up to 10-year prison sentence at hard labor. And then there's also the sex offense registry for 15 years.
So it doesn't matter what the facts of the case were, even if it's not sexually involved, you still have to register as a sex offender for 15 years in Louisiana?
Absolutely, if you're convicted under this particular charge.
What are the other, perhaps unintended consequences of criminalizing HIV?
It undermines public health. The importance of HIV science, the criminal law is often being applied to people living with HIV in a manner that is inconsistent with up-to-date scientific and medical evidence, including overstating the risk of HIV transmission and overstating the harm to a person's health and well-being for being exposed or even acquiring HIV.
We can't have a conversation on criminalization and not talk about legacies of anti-Blackness and white supremacy. HIV as a virus, it does impact Black people in Louisiana. It does impact Black LGBTQ people in Louisiana, particularly Black men who have sex with men, and Black trans women, and Black cisgender women are a very fast-growing population. We also have to acknowledge that's who's really targeted by HIV criminalization in this state as well. Something else that I see is it actually increases HIV stigma. And it deters testing. And the reason why it deters testing is because of how broad and how vague our criminal statute is. All you have to know is that you're living with HIV. Nothing else needs to be proved, that there was an intent to transmit, that there was actual transmission, the type of activity that was engaged. So why would I want to know my status if I know I could be criminalized for it, even if I use safer sex practices, even if I'm undetectable? So it actually goes against so many of the messages that so many advocates in our state are really working hard to do, which is know your status, be tested, be in care. So it's really clear that there's a lot of misconceptions and the realities of the law are really missing, which is why I'm so glad we're having this conversation. But if I'm hearing this for the first time, I want to know, what can we do?
Well, there's lots that we can do. We can definitely talk about it, which is important, but we want you to help build a future for Louisiana where HIV is addressed through public health and not imprisonment. Thank you, Mandisa, for this opportunity to chat about this important issue in this state.
I'm honored to be in this conversation with you.
Thank you.